this is a project that we have been doing for 3 years. We have been studying how different actors within the tourism industry on the island of Gotland are trying to organize themselves. The main case is around a port, a berth that is newly inaugurated in 2018. And we were curious to understand how they were organizing and also how it affected the destination management organization on a general level. So what we are going to do today is that we are going to give you the background about the case that we have. And also, as you probably all have experienced, Corona came during the spring, and we could see a huge decrease in the number of cruise ships arriving to the berth. And this actually then put everything to, to the, to the core. What should we actually do? And those questions we also try to figure out more about. So therefore, we changed the subject a bit for this conference and are also going to present how they are trying to manage the crisis that we see. Let's see if I can. There we go. If we look at the tourism industry and research around it, we know that destination management organizations, they are promoted quite much, and cooperation between public and public actors are also put forward as something that is really, really important to facilitate regional economic growth. So we can see a lot of research going on about DMOs, and in most of those researches that we see, they say that there is a DMO, it's rather clearly defined, and they're just trying to figure out how it's being managed. The problem that we found when we started doing our case study is that in Gotland there is not one DMO, there is an official, or sometimes there is an official DMO, but mostly there seems to be more clusters of different organizations that come together. Cooperation is also an important part of the SDGs. Number 17, there is one thing where they state that in order to be able to reach sustainability goals, we need to have cooperation among different types of stakeholders. But we can also see that within research, it's very hard to cooperate, and also this idea of putting different actors together and try to create relationships instead of looking at already existing relationships. That's rather tough. And in many cases, we can see that created networks or clusters fail. And we're going to explain more why I'm talking about created versus emerging networks. And please do stop me if I'm not clear. I'm trying to be as clear as I can. If we look at the tourism industry, it's normally fragmented, and we can see a lot of small actors, but we can also see large and public actors, and they are working side by side. And the question is, how do we make these cooperate then, if that is the important aspect? And in many cases, we can also see governments actually financing different destination management organizations, saying that we need to put together a lot of actors cooperating and more or less try to create clusters of different actors within the tourism industry to create these destination management organizations. And as you can see, cooperation and interdependencies are important. But there are also several factors influencing if they can cooperate. We can see from previous research that formulated strategies, the maturity of the destination are things that facilitate cooperation. But what came to our minds now during this Corona crisis is, so we can say that actors should work together. It's very important, but the question is, what happens when there is a crisis? In previous research that we have found related to crisis, we can see that it usually results in new relationships, new actors coming together, they mobilize more efficiently. But the question is still, can we see that within the tourism industry when there's this threat of survival or disappearing? We could also expect that there could be more competition going on. And how is a destination affected in terms of mobilizing? How good are they at mobilizing? In framing why you should be part of this? And what does the cooperation look like? We do this by using the network approach. I'm from Uppsala, and those that know Uppsala know that we are famous for the industrial marketing and purchasing research. So that's my background. What they do within the research on network approach is that they not only look at actors, but also focus very much on activities and resources and how they are linked to each other. And we also look at mobilization and research on mobilization. And according to Salmi and Ritvala, and for those that haven't read that article, I can recommend it. It's on Baltic Sea and crisis. But they talk about mobilization and say that this is a dynamic process of engaging actors on broad fronts to tackle a common issue. So network approach is more on long term, where you can see that relationships evolve over time, they merge, and over time, activities and resources become linked. Whereas mobilization is more focused on the here and now and an issue that needs to be solved short term, usually. So the case that we are looking at is a network called the Gotland Cruise Network. And it was actually initiated more or less in relation to a new cruise berth that was going to be built and inaugurated. And it was inaugurated in 2018. It's Copenhagen Malmö Port are going to rent this berth. It is Region Gotland that is responsible for constructing it. And the whole idea is that Gotland is going to develop as a cruise destination and to be able to receive the large cruise ships that are now sailing on the Baltic Sea. But the demand from Copenhagen Malmö Port is that if we're going to rent this pier or this quay, you need to form a network on the island of Gotland that can handle cruise tourists. So they more or less say that you need to create a network. And the created network should consist of both public and private stakeholders. In this, there is a private association called Gotland's United Tourism Organization. And we have the Copenhagen Malmö Port, which is actually consisting both of private and public partnerships, and Region Gotland, which is the county. They together were supposed to finance 50% of this network, and then they were going to recruit members, and their fees would finance the rest. And the whole idea was that this Gotland Cruise Network were going to form a network and invite a lot of members, and that the Region Gotland, the county, would also organize their work in accordance to what was going to happen in this cruise network. So here we can see more or less two parallel organizations of destination management. What we have done is that we have done 65 interviews with the different stakeholders and members that are part of this. We have done it over 3 years' time. We have also participated in meetings. We have read official documents, news articles, press releases, and we actually, as the corona virus hit the industry, we also were part in organizing a workshop to assemble different actors and talk about, so what can we learn from this corona crisis? The focus that we have had is to capture incidents And to give an understanding of the activities, we have a focus on what's happening and progressing over time and how different processes evolved and why. So the main focus from our beginning was not the crisis, but it actually seems to have a rather important impact.
Sabine, 5 minutes left.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. So what we can see in phase 0, that's the decision to form a network. They were identifying different actors and inviting, and they were already existing networks with different actors involved in their own networks of activities. So they were invited. And in phase 1, the different actors start mobilizing, and GCN, that's the Gotland Cruise Network, with Gotlands Förenade Besöksnäring taking the lead. They started mobilizing by setting up work groups. We could see that there was a focus on specific activities, how to take care of the new visitors coming. There were toilet groups and things like that, and there were high commitment. The framing of this was to participate, be responsible, being able to influence, and it would generate business benefits. But in phase 2, the problem was that all these work groups were doing quite a lot of work, but they didn't really see that anyone took care of these decisions. So they felt that nothing ever happened. They worked and nothing was the result of this. So what we then could see was that this rather became a loosely coupled network with scattered actors. They were more members. And one of the initiators, the Copenhagen Malmö Port, actually also withdraws. And there's a discussion of reorganizing. There's unclear responsibilities, and it doesn't seem to happen anything. Then the corona crisis hit. So what we then see is that Gotland's Förenade Besöksnäring again steps in, now in a close cooperation with the county. They start centralizing the decision making. They mobilize a few actors who they give responsibility to act. And a result of this is that they start pooling resources and activities. So they have a job pool, for example, for those that have more employees than they are actually in need of. So they can use each other's resources in terms of that. The framing became cooperate for survival, and we can see a lot of commitment going on. But how can we then understand this? As we see it, it started as an idea of being a long-term oriented network, but it actually now has resulted in more of an issue-based net. So they are more focusing on issues which are short-term, and this is a bit of a summarizing that. So we can see different phases, and we can also see a shift from decentralized to centralized decisions, which actually then put the actors into action. So the external pressure effect level of cooperation, and we can see also that it becomes more short-term oriented, but that's where the activities start happening. And the question that we are now following is what happens next? What is phase 4? Will it continue, or will we see rather that it starts dissolving again? And we don't know, but that's where we're going to stop. So we can say that a way of handling this is that they actually start centralizing decisions, they put power into a few actors, and that's where they finally get to cooperate more.